Okay, so when we talk about sedimentary rock and we look at those unfortunate individuals who happen to be caught in the rock through some catastrophic event, we get a feel for what life looked like millions and millions, even billions of years ago. So everyone knows we used to have dinosaurs. You don't have to watch out for them out there, right? They're gone. Or are they gone? There was a small dinosaur um, which had feathers. And they found it, and they've actually found others similar to it. But it's the first one that they found that was sort of the boing event was something called Archaeopteryx. And Archaeopteryx had feathers, and it had teeth also. Birds don't have teeth. But it looked like it could fly, and if not fly, maybe glide. And so when we start looking at the fossil record, what all of a sudden scientists realized we had said, we had this event, this in geologic history when there was an asteroid, that's the idea anyway, that is thought to have been the demise of most of the dinosaurs. But there was this small feathered dinosaur called Archaeopteryx. And if we look at the fossil evolutionary tree, we realize that up here, this is way back when in history, and up here, this is today. And I have tweet up here. And what they realized is that because our world changed, we had said, you have this event, kills most of the dinosaurs, but there are these weird dinosaurs with feathers that can either glide or maybe fly, and there's not much competition after everybody dies. And there are food resources available out there. And so you get this changing over time through a process called evolution. And in a nutshell, what happens is you get these isolated individuals who have, are genetically similar, but they're faced with new problems. And so you have this population of individuals, and some of those individuals are pretty good at surviving, whereas others not so much in whatever environment they happen to have found themselves in. And so they start to, Fred and Jill over here, they have characteristics that allow them to do much better than Ralph and Jane. And so the babies over here are successful and not so much over here. And so over time, the population changes. And when you add in millions of years, you end up with all these different kinds of birds. It's a family tree. The evolutionary tree has produced everything from vultures to hummingbirds and robins in the middle, right? So we've got all these different kinds of birds. And all life, basically, has adapted over time. We know this happens. We used to have trilobites around. I'd love to see a trilobite, but they don't exist anymore. But they're probably, who knows? I don't know anything about trilobites, but maybe they're descendants of trilobites that are roaches or something. I don't know. I know nothing about trilobites, so I'm sure they're not related to roaches. So don't quote me on that. But the point is that we have life changes over time. And so because we have the vultures and the hummingbirds and the robins, when we start looking at things, I'm going to change organisms now. We're going to talk about frogs. A frog is not just a frog. You don't look out there and say, oh, that's a frog. You might say that, but then you say, it's a bullfrog. or a tree frog, or maybe it's a toad, but they're all related, right? They all share something in common. And so we have this thing called classification, which is based on the relatedness of organisms. So classification tries to look at the diversity of life and say, well, tree frogs and bullfrogs and toads are all related, but a toad is more different than from a tree frog and a bullfrog than the tree frog and the bullfrog are from each other, right? So what we do is we look at the fossil tree and we organize things together. Certainly birds, toads, tree frogs, and bullfrogs. Birds are much more different from frogs than toads are from the other two frogs. So we have something we call classification, which is an attempt to make sense of all of this diversity in life. And so when we look at classification, we had said, well, how do we organize all of these different things, all of these different forms of life? Now, you might know that when you look at you and I, and we think of it in a science term, we are what is classified as Homo sapiens. Our genus is Homo, and our species is Sapiens. And if you happen to be a fan of some of this kind of stuff, you might know that there have been other types of humans, right? You know, we have Homo erectus and Homo habilis. That's, I think, the one they call Hobbit Man. If Lord of the Rings connection. And then there's the most famous of all, and I didn't look this up, I wish I had, but what is the most famous hominid that everyone knows, but that is dead today? It's Neanderthal. The Neanderthals were another species of human. And if you do your ancestry, maybe you've got some Neanderthal in you. Yoo-hoo! Caveman! Cavemen are us. Anyway, so we have this system of classification where we have a species, but we don't just call it sapiens. It's a dual name classification where we have Homo sapiens. And we're also in the class Mammalia, so there's this whole scheme, a classification of life. Okay, I've gone on for 8.5 minutes. I better stop right here.